Welcome to this lecture. Today we'll see two topics. One is memory and second is processing and network. In the case of memory that we already seen in previous semesters as well. So there is what is called as a RAM, which is a volatile random access memory. Rather, it is also called as short-term memory because as we have just told its name, it's volatile. It will retain the contents for a very short period. So it's silicon memory basically, and has got a very small access time, and as we've just seen, it's volatile. The speed of transfer of data is also very good. Rather, we'll not go into details because we already seen this. We'll see the implications of those characteristics with respect to the human machine interaction. Now, this particular non-volatile RAM, there is one ROM which is called, they have just called it as non-volatile RAM. That is used to store basic setup information that we already know from BIOS setup. There is ROM which stores the booting data, etc. So the old figures, in the case of desktop computers today, the RAM goes from 2 GB up till some 16 GB and even further depending on the applications. So long-term memory, which is a secondary memory, here it may be in the form of magnetic disk, right from floppy disk till hard disk, varying capacities right from 1.4 megabytes for floppy disk up till 40 to next 80, and recent we are having some 1 TB, 2 TB, etc. hard disk of that capacity. Obviously, the access time is more as compared to the primary memory here because it is a magnetic memory. The second version of the second, I mean the magnetic, as good as magnetic disks. In the case of secondary memory, there are optical disks which are working on the principle of optics, where the lasers are used to read as well as write sometimes. It's more robust than the magnetic media. It retains the data more than, I mean, the capacity in the sense of time. It can retain the data for archival purposes. So we are having CD-ROMs and DVDs as well. CD-ROMs may be having capacity of 600 GBs, where the DVDs may be having even higher capacities. The CD-ROMs may be having the capacity of some MBs, so 700 MBs onwards, and DVDs are having even more capacity, and that's why the DVDs are used especially for audio video applications or some large files. Now we have seen the two types. One is silicon memory and one is magnetic or optical memory. Now in the case of PDAs, we see here that as the PDAs are always running, for example, now we can think of smartphones like Android or some Apple phones. They are having processing capabilities, and they also use the silicon memory for their uh, RAM as well as persistent storage as well. So we simply, because it is silicon memory, we cannot say that it's volatile. So the boundaries are now blurring. We are also having flash memory, which is also a silicon based memory, but it is persistent. It is used in, as we have just seen, PDAs, mobiles, cameras, etc. It's plug and play USB, used mainly for data transfer. Now, we have just seen the speed and capacities of those two types of memories. Just to get what different practical things may have different capacities. For example, if it's a normal textbook, it may be having the storage requirement of, let us say, some 2 to 4 MBs. If it is only text, scan pages, uh, they may be having the storage requirement of 128 megabytes. If they are of size, for example, 11 by 8 inches, normal A4, near A4 size, 1200 dpi dots per resolution we have just previously seen, and it is having the 8-bit grayscale palette. Had that been a digital photo, that would have required 10 megabytes. If it is 10 to 4 megapixels with 24-bit color. Had that been a video, that would have required 10 megabytes per second. I'm telling it's 10 megabytes per second. That is means different frames are, I mean, in the case of videos, there are different frames which are shown rapidly, and per second the memory requirement goes to 10 MB, which was there for a single photo. So the video of parameters, it is length and width, 512 pixels, 12-bit color, and 25 frames per second. If that is those are the parameters for that video, that may be the storage requirement. Now, given that, we must know that if that particular media, a text, photo or video, depending on that, the memory requirements will vary. So we now come to why virtual memory is required. So obviously there may be primary memory available, but as we have seen, the capacity is limited, and that's why we may sometimes be running multiple programs, or maybe a single program requires higher storage, and that may not be possible to contain the whole contents in the actual primary memory, the RAM. And that's why you already know that there is virtual memory which takes help of the secondary memory, and that secondary memory is used as primary memory. But that essentially requires what is called as swapping, and the data has to be swapped from disk to the primary memory, and this basically slows down the processing. That's why, to reduce the size requirement, there may be a compression used that effectively reduces the amount of storage required. We have seen that video requirements and that audio requirements and that textual requirements, size requirements for those particular media. Now, if the media requirement is of higher storage capacity, if we can compress that particular media, then we can reduce the size required. So there are two types of compressions that you already seen. One is lossless, where after the compression, the same image or the same media can be obtained after its decompression. So here, for example, the compression techniques or formats like GIF or zip may be used. The normal logic here is looking for commonalities. For example, if the text contains some repeated characters as shown here, so those particular characters, lengthy characters, that particular string may be compressed to, for example, there are 10 A's followed by 5 B's and followed by 8 C's. So rather than storing uh, those 23 characters, we are storing only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. So the whole data of 23 characters is now compressed to just 7 characters by having that string decoded as 10A followed by 5B followed by 8C. So whenever it is to be presented, that will be uh, analyzed, that will be identified to be there are 10 A's followed by 5 B's followed by 8 C's, and the actual string will be displayed. So similar things goes in videos as well. So here As we have just seen, the video is simply there are multiple frames being displayed successively rapidly, so that due to the illusion it appears to be a continuous video. Now lossy compression techniques are also there, which basically compress the media by removing out, I mean basically they compress the media, and in that process they lose some of the original contents of that media. And such techniques are, or the formats are, JPEG and MP3. So here basically they exploit perception. In the case of JPEG, so you lose rapid changes and some color, so that may not be visible to the naked eyes of the user, the human being. So in the case of MP3, reduce accuracy of drawn out notes. We as human beings, we already seen that we can hear the frequency in the range of 15 hertz to 20 kilohertz, and beyond that, if the sound contains, the media contains any frequencies there, that is not required to be stored, because ultimately that is not being perceived by the user. Now the storage formats for text, first is ASCII, American Standard Code for information interchange. It's a 7-bit binary code for each letter and character. There is UTF-8, which is Unicode, 8-bit encoding of 16-bit character set. Next is RTF, Rich Text Format. Here text plus formatting and layout information is also stored. Next is standardized generalized markup language, where the documents are regarded as structured objects. One example of HTML is XML, where you might have already seen what is XML. The different parts of a structured document are represented using the extended markup language. There are markups for different things, for example, the header, the abstract, and the contents, whatever it may be. So this is how there are different ways or representing the text. The different media, for example, images and audio video are also there. There are images and many storage formats are used, for example, GIF, JPEG, TIFF, BMP, many others are there, and they may use some compression techniques. For example, JPEG itself is a compression format. In the case of audio and video, again you can see many more formats like MP3, MP4, which is a part of MPEG standard, Windows audio video, WAV, Apple's QuickTime, and many such other formats are also there. Even in the same, as we have seen for the images, there are compression techniques as well. So MP4 is a compressed video basically. There are streaming formats. Basically they are used in applications like YouTube and other things, where the data is streamed, continuously transferred over network, and that is represented in real time. Now methods of access. If the media is of some large capacity, we should be able to quickly find out part of it, let us say. So large information store, if it is large, it will obviously take more time to search. So we can use index for that matter. So what exactly to index? What we can access? For example, there may be some records, like you already have seen in the case of databases. There may be some keys used, roll number for in the case of students, so which can be used as indexes. Other fields are also there. Now the depending on the type of index, that can search for exact match, or that can even be used for some near matches. So in the same line, there are systems which are said to be forgiving. So basically, they don't exactly search for the given term. They can search for a term or a key which is matching closely to the search term. For example, in the case of Xerox Corporation, they have applications they can run with the logic of do what I mean. So, for example, in the case of Linux, let me try to show you. Here, there is a command called as clear. Okay. So we are now not knowing that there is a clear command. So we have misspelled that to be CLEA. Now the system says that command clear CLEA is not found. Did you mean CLEX, CLEAR or CLEO? Some other commands which are closely matching there. So this is one example of finding out what user actually means and doing that. So there is some other example of SoundX where the terms like if the search key contains the term like MacLeod, which is shown here, the first term, that may even find a closely matched term called as MacLeod. Now this is pertaining to some index, if there are some index. Now if there is no structure, no such index is defined, it is free text indexing. So all the words in the document may be searched, any of the word. So in that context, that can be searched, but that will require more space. So we'll now come to the next point, which is processing and networks. Here, the designers design a system or some interface with the assumption that there is a fast processing mechanism available to the hardware is very fast to process that. So they try to make it more and more advanced. In that, they make it more complicated. But actually, the hardware may not be able to cope up with those complexities, and there may be some problems. For example, you might already experience some scenarios like cursor overshooting because system has buffered key presses. So, for example, you might have pressed the up key, down key on the keyboard many times, multiple times with a rapid, I mean fast. And even after you stop pressing that, the cursor goes further, which is not expected. It moves back, etc. Icon works. You click rapidly on different icons, trying to open different applications. Nothing happens at that time, but after some time, all of a sudden, the windows for those applications start to come up. So that is not what is expected. That is problematic, and this is because the hardware is not able to process at the speed which the user is performing. There may be problems if the system is too fast. Now we have seen that what happens if the system is lagging, and there may be problems if the system is too fast. For example, you want to take help, and due to the speed the help is displayed, the help pages are scrolling fast automatically, which cannot be simply read. So there is a popular Moore's law basically. So Gordon Moore, a co-founder of Intel, noticed basically a pattern in the case of hardware. So processor speed doubles every 18 months, he noted. Similar pattern is there with memory, but doubles every 12 months. Now with that fashion, the baby born today, and if you start recording all sound and vision of the activities performed by that baby, when the baby grows to his or her 70s, all his or her life's memories can be stored in a grain of dust. I mean, a device which is that short. So this is the speed with which the hardware is advancing. But even with that, there is a myth of infinitely fast machine. So what is the implicit assumption? What we expect? There are no delays as the system is infinitely fast. But actually, what is good design? Is that all that the system only is very fast? Now, let us say one example. If you type the telephone keys, there are numbers on the telephone keypad, and if you type very fast the keys, there is some kind of audio feedback. For every key press, there is a tone generated. So even though you press the keys very fast, the numbers are or the tones are generated after that in that particular sequence, but with a certain delay. That is actually an accident of implementation because the system cannot cope up with the speed of the key presses. And due to this, you come to know the way in which the key presses were made. And that becomes easy for the user to know that this is the sequence in which the keys were pressed. So that becomes helpful because of the lack of speed in the hardware. That's an accident of implementation. Now, there are some limitations of interactive performance. The limitations may be because of many things. One is computation bound. So computation takes time, causing frustration for the user. If your CPU is old, you may, and if you are performing many complex computation intensive work, that may not cope up with the speed. Storage channel bound. If you're transferring data from memory to disk or disk to memory, which is the data is uh, more, the storage channel has got the limitation that the data cannot be transferred at that expected speed. Graphic bound, your graphics capabilities of the systems may be weak, and so that complex video editing things cannot be uh, implemented as they are expected. Network capacity limitations are also there. So while the resources are being shared over the network, uh, the performance is not up to the mark. Now, network basically allows access to a large memory and processing, because you can even connect to high-end processors and RAID devices, etc. We can connect to other people and some shared resources, for example, the internet, web. But with those capacities, once again, there are similar delays, network delays, conflicts, because if you can think of a same document which is stored uh, in the network, and that is accessed by many people simultaneously, there may be conflicts. Now that is contrary to the cloud fashion. Now in the case of Google Sheets, it allows for simultaneous access and prohibits the conflicts. That is different thing. Unpredictability, what will happen if the resources are connected over network, we are not sure. So this is about the memory and the processing and networks.